welcome to Young Money. I'm Nozipho Mbanjwa. Today we're coming to you from the SAB world of beer. Now I've just learned something new, and that is the word shebeen actually has its origins in the Irish language, and it means a place of community and a place of coming together. So this is me coming straight from the shebeen, bringing you an exceptional show where we're going to be talking to Didi Mohapi and Khulekani Mncube. Now Didi is a medical innovator. She's based in the Free State, and she is making primary health care more accessible to rural communities by bringing mobile diagnostic labs to their doorsteps and ensuring that they can get tested for any of those illnesses that we usually make the big commute into the city to in about 2 or 3 minutes. And of course, Khulekani is taking on another huge societal issue. He's looking at ensuring that more South Africans get open to the idea of using minibus taxis and public transport in particular. And this is through an app called Connect Me. So 2 young entrepreneurs doing exceptional things in the South African entrepreneurial space. It's going to be an exciting show. Remember that if you want us to come to you, it's really easy. All you need to do is just follow me on Twitter. It's @TheRealNozy, using our hashtag YoungMoney410, and don't forget to tag @CNBC Africa. Let's go meet Didi. We're sitting down in what was a typical shebeen in a township in South Africa. And no, we're not looking at the past. Instead, we are actually looking to the future. And this is with one of South Africa's trailblazers in the medical innovation space. Her name is Didi Mohapi, and she is the entrepreneur and the brains behind medical diagnostic labs that are changing access and affordability of primary health care for South Africans. Didi, thank you so much for making the time to join us. Talk to us a little bit about the product that you've introduced to the market, this being the mobile diagnostic labs. How do they work, and how do you reduce cost and ease of access for primary health care?
All right, we specialize in point of care testing. So that's a niche service that's not currently big in the market in South Africa quite recently. How it works is that we normally, like for example, patient A comes in, we're mobile. So patient A comes into our mobile truck, and then one of our staff, a medical technologist, or even the doctor herself, she will prick the patient, take that single drop of blood onto our different machines that we have. So now how it works is that these machines will now calculate and give you a result in less than 3 minutes or so. So we have your results right then and then. So now this improves the turnaround time of you getting your results instead of waiting long queues at a clinic and even waiting even over 24 hours to get your results back.
That's a big game changer if we consider the fact that public hospitals and public clinics to a large extent are an experience of waiting and also maybe even waiting just to get an appointment. So you bring the service into the community. How many of these do you currently have, and what's the target in terms of growing the numbers?
Currently, we just have one, and we're just based in the Free State. However, in the long run, in 5 years or so, we definitely want to expand to all the provinces in the country, going to more underprivileged areas as well. Yeah.
And Didi, what was the experience like of actually bringing this idea to life? I mean, it's one thing to have the idea, but it's another thing, even if it's just one, to actually see it in operation. What were the biggest challenges, and what keeps being a challenge as we move forward?
Biggest challenge is actually getting the different equipment itself, because as you can know and think, medical equipment is not that cheap. So yeah, going around different investors, trying to get a startup capital so that we can buy these equipment. So that's been a challenge. However, we are very persistent, and we persevere, and we go through. We do all means. Yeah.
And talk us through that funding experience that you've gone through. What was it like going to access that funding? And when you say investors, who are these investors? And did you have to engage with traditional banks? And if so, what was that response like?
Currently, I was part of the SAB KickStart program. I got told about it or saw it through Twitter, and then it was a series of now where you had to pitch your business idea, go through trainings, and then get selected in a period of 6 months, then your product or your idea would be like you helped through mentorships, you will help to get the idea going and stuff. Now at the end of it, now winners were selected. Yes, and currently I'm the top 3.
All right, and does that come with funding?
Yes, that came with funding.
And how much money did that inject into your business?
That injected 200,000, so that will help in actually getting some of the equipment. It might not be all of the equipment, but hey, it's a start.
Are there other avenues? I mean, there might be other entrepreneurs who have interests in the medical innovation space and are not part of this particular program. What would you advise them when it comes to raising capital for this type of business? Research is key.
You know, when you go through, even with your business idea, always research and developing your idea. That's key. So they must just go around, research, find out what's there, because investors are there. They're just willing to hear a business idea, hear a need if there is, and then they'll try and help.
And my understanding is that you're still in full-time employment, also of course being an entrepreneur. What is that experience like, trying to straddle the two worlds?
Yeah, that's a challenging experience because now I have to balance work hours and everything, and still make sure that my business stands and it runs. So, but that is a challenge on itself, because now in the long run, I'm looking into leaving full-time employment because I'm very passionate about the company and the business and the goal, the vision that the company has. So I'm pursuing that full-time.
And let's talk about the skills that you would need behind your company. I know you spoke about medical technologists as probably being the ones who do the actual screenings and give the results back to the patients. But what does it take to have a full value of the service? What kind of skills and people would you need on board?
Okay. Medical scientists. For example, I have a BSc degree in the medical field. So I did medical microbiology. So we need people that have lab work experience as well. Yeah, your medical technologist. Yeah.
And how was this received in your family? The idea that you wanted to go and change lives in rural communities, in addition to working what I would assume is an already tough full-time job. What was that experience like?
The family. Well, they're excited. They're all supporting me, and they're behind the vision of the company because they see there's a need and it needs to be addressed, it needs to be helped as well.
Let's talk about your dreams and the ambitions for the business. So I know that you've got one mobile lab right now, and you're looking to expand that. What are the numbers in how many years, and how much capital do you think you're going to need to do that?
In 5 years' time, hopefully expanding to all the provinces. Therefore, we need, in the Free State right now, we're looking into having 2 in more like 3 years. So 2 in one area per province.
Right.
Yeah.
There are other young women who are watching your interview now and are probably very inspired by what you have done. 1, by just breaking into a very difficult field, but 2, extending that and in a social enterprise that is out to make a difference. What are some of the words of advice that you'd give to them to get them excited about following in your footsteps?
Yeah. I'd say to them, when you have a dream and you're passionate about it, and first and foremost, you must believe in yourself. So it takes you believing in yourself, because out there you're gonna knock on many doors and you might get no's. But if you believe in your product or your service, so you just need to persevere. Persevere in it and do all that you can to see it grow. Don't just give up.
Let's talk about that perseverance, because one would think that you didn't just wake up and everything went well.
No.
What was the biggest failure in your journey so far with this particular entrepreneurial experience?
Okay, my biggest sacrifice, I had to sacrifice time away from work, which was a big challenge. Failure as well was when I tried to go into the Kroonstad area to have my product there, my services there. I knocked on that door and the lady just said, no, we don't think you're gonna make it here, because she would point out a few reasons. But it was hard to hear that. It was quite heartbreaking to hear and know. However, from that meeting, you go out and you're like, you know what, I know that there's a need for this service, and somewhere, somehow, when I knock on that door, it will be open somewhere.
And how has the community in the Free State where you are reacted to the mobile labs?
They're excited because now services are going to be more easily accessible to them. So they're looking forward to when we actually finally can go into the market and start operating. Because currently these medical services, they're not that affordable.
Right.
You know.
And so what is the costing model that you're using? I mean, on the one hand, if you go into a public institution, whether it's a clinic or a hospital, the cost isn't that the big concern. So what is the cost of accessing the mobile labs on a typical day for a typical service?
Okay, our price, we have different prices for different tests. So for example, you want to do a glucose test, just the test alone, or the coagulation test, for example, just that test, it's $150 per test. However, if you want to consult the doctor as well, so that they can read back to you, tell you exactly what your results, and tell you, advise you on treatment options as well, then the consultation fees are also included in that.
And have you had engagements with the government or any other sort of public institutions, and what's the kind of reaction that they're having to young entrepreneurs wanting to come through the door and wanting to partner with them?
We currently have a meeting lined up with the MEC of Health in the Free State. Yes. So they're quite interested in hearing what MHP Labs is all about. What's this point of care testing? And hey, because it's a bit different. Because the services, so in the private sector, some established labs have a point of care test, one or two tests, but in the public sector, it's totally not there.
Right, yeah. Well, there you have it. Her name is Didi Mohapi. She is one of South Africa's hottest medical innovators in the space. And she's really here disrupting the public health space by making sure that products are more accessible to rural and the township communities and bringing those services right to their doorstep. They've started off with one lab in the Free State, but of course, as you've heard, the vision is to expand this nationally. And we cross fingers with her that the next time we touch base, we're talking about a national and a continental strategy for MH Labs. We thank you for joining us. We're going to take a short break, but when we come back, we're going to be touching base with Khulekani Mncube. Khulekani has introduced a logistics app, which is really fantastic. When you look at this app, you're able to see different taxi routes. You're able to even get the hand signals that get you to your destination. It's really exciting. It's very South African and obviously very authentic. We'll see you straight after this. Welcome back to Young Money. If you've just joined us, we're at the SAB World of Beer. And just before we went to break, I promised you that we're going to speak to Khulekani Mncube. He is the entrepreneur and the brains behind the Connect Me app. I'm really excited to find out about this because as a person who grew up taking taxis, I can hardly wrap my head around the fact that this can be translated into an app. We're in an innovative and clearly a digital era. Khulekani, thank you so much for making the time to join us. How does the Connect Me app work?
Connect Me is a GPS-like service or web app where you simply log onto a website and it automatically picks up your current location. So as soon as it knows where you are, you click on the Connect Me button and it navigates you to a particular area. In this instance, we're targeting event companies. So it'll target you to an event, show you travel information such as landmarks, taxi hand signs, estimated time of arrival, fares, etc. Yes.
And is this all based on GPS but walking, or?
This is based on actual taxi routes. So for instance, if you were catching a taxi to Soweto, it will show you how to walk to Bree and then show you how to catch a taxi from Bree to Soweto.
Khulekani, how did you actually get to this idea?
Yeah, well, it actually started as a different idea on how to go through traffic quicker by providing information on vehicle statistics such as vehicle speed, average distance between cars, and I actually proposed that to one of my business partners. He thought it's a brilliant idea, started working on it, and we figured it's going to take 10, 15 years in order to get government to agree on that concept, right? So instead of getting people through traffic quicker, let's get people off the roads. Hence Connect Me, which started off as a public transport information app, but now we're focusing on minibus taxis particularly.
Right, that's really fantastic, and I'm sure you have views on Waze and all of these other apps that have now come on board in terms of navigating the traffic. But let's talk a little bit more about Connect Me.
Yeah.
So it allows you to navigate using different taxi routes. So you can connect to events, or you can connect to an actual taxi that will then move you to whichever destination that you want. If you're downloading the app, what is the funding behind the app? Do you download the app at cost, or is the app free? And if it's so, how are you ensuring that there is a financial flow and a revenue flow behind the app?
All right, so what we figured is a lot of South Africans are currently facing the crunch or bearing the brunt of heavy data costs. So we decided to move it from a mobile app to a web app.
Right.
Yeah, so when it comes to generating revenue, hence why we're starting off with event companies. Now, we would sell a logistics service to event companies, which would be a web app which is on a particular event company's website, and it has the same features, but we've created an additional service where once you've gone to an event, you can click on a Connect Me or a Take Me Home button, and it automatically books a taxi which takes you to your doorstep. Yeah, so we're trying to come in at a very affordable prices, much cheaper or a bit cheaper than current meter taxi prices.
Right, and of course we know that the meter taxi and just the taxi situation in South Africa is a hot button issue right now.
Yeah.
So when you say connect me to a taxi, are you looking at a range of players, so meter taxis, Uber drivers, Taxify, all of the stakeholders, or have you partnered with a specific service provider?
All right, so now, given that the most popular one of the most popular forms of public transportation is minibus taxis, we've decided to opt for that route. And we are currently in negotiations with, or in discussions with Gauteng Santaco to see how we can use Connect Me to benefit them on a more strategic level.
So talk to me about the big vision. I mean, this is such an exciting concept. Where are you in relation to the end goal?
Well, the end goal is nationalization, or going national, having Connect Me start off with events all over the country and gradually get people used to the idea of using public transport. The biggest challenge we have is these current issues with regards to not to go into detail, but these current issues with regards to certain incidents which have happened with regards to public transport, particularly minibus taxis. And there's also stereotypes of taxi drivers behaving in a particular type of way.
Yeah.
So we want to help people to experience a better side of public transport and eventually convince them to use public transport. Going forward, once we've gone national, we'd like to expand other services which are related to minibus taxis.
I think it's a fantastic idea, and I know that we're sort of toeing around some of the issues in the taxi industry, and I think for credible conversation it's always good to take them head on. One of the issues is the stereotypes, of course, that you've raised. Is there a plan in the long term to partner with other players that perhaps work on that particular side of the equation, just to change the mindset of how taxi drivers behave, but also how they're perceived, because it's a behavioral issue, but it's also a perception issue.
Yeah. So how I think Connect Me might benefit the perception change or the stereotype removal of most South Africans is actually experiencing the service. What we are going to do is we're going to have accredited drivers, which would have roadworthy vehicles, and you'd actually give them a crash course on etiquette before they actually partner with us. So they will experience, I mean, there are some taxi drivers which are actually very polite, right?
Yes.
So we want to help them experience some of these good traits of public transport, in particular taxis, and eventually, when the event goers experience the other side, they might be more willing to use the public transport systems during the day.
Well, we're certainly going to be crossing fingers that your vision comes to light. I think a lot of South Africans would like to see an improvement in both behavior and perception and experience of taking public transport, in particular mini taxis in South Africa. But I want to go back to your personal journey. I mean, you are a full-time entrepreneur. Others would say a full-time hustler, whatever choice of language you use. Why this route instead of going to knock on the doors of a big corporate firm and becoming one of many? Yeah,
well, I tried the corporate route. I worked for a couple of years in a global manufacturing company, but I was a bit frustrated, particularly with my ideas, my vision. You might be in a corporate sector or in a corporate company, and you might be full of ideas, full of ambition, knocking on doors, but people aren't really hearing what you have to say, right? So I figured, let me channel this creativity into something which could be profitable for myself and benefit people all over the world. Yeah.
And the day you made the decision, if you look back at it now, any regrets?
This is the best decision I've ever made. Yeah, no, definitely. It's fulfilling.
It's been a good decision that's been really fulfilling, but I'm sure it hasn't been without difficult moments, and I'm sure it hasn't been without a few setbacks. What has been the one thing that has probably been a setback that's pushed you back to the drawing board, but you've gotten up and carried on?
Yeah. Well, the greatest discovery is more viability of a product, right, or sensibility. Yes, that's actually taken the longest time and the greatest cost. You might be developing a product and you think this is what the market wants, right? So you go to and fro, spend money, develop this, figure out this isn't going to work. That actually costs a lot of money. So financially, doing research and trying to figure out what will actually work for the market has been the greatest setback for me.
And your family, how did they take the decision of transitioning from a global firm to going it on your own and taking on such a huge societal issue?
Yeah, they've been very supportive with my journey. Particularly, obviously it wasn't easy in the beginning, but they soon warmed up to the idea of me actually going about it by myself. I think the SAB KickStart program also made it easier pill to swallow, given the prospects of success are much higher when you go through such a program. So yeah.
And when we just reflect quickly on the program, what type of support have you received that you think has been invaluable to making sure that this journey has been meaningful, but also with high prospects of being successful?
Yeah, the greatest thing about SAB KickStart or the entire mentorship program, it is business development centered, right? But more giving you business skills which you can apply to any industry and any product. By that I'm referring to value. I've learned the meaning of value in a product. Perceived value, actual value, and how to actually go about creating a selling price which is not just a thumbsuck, right? Or what I think people are actually going to buy. There's a lot more thought which goes into all my decisions when it comes to sales strategies, when it comes to product development. They've really given me valuable skills which I can apply to any industry.
Thank you so much for making the time to join us, Khulekani, and we're wishing you all the best. Well, there's a very clear tidbit that we can take out of the conversation with Khulekani and Mncube, and that is to make sure that you know the difference between perceived value and actual value. And this is really going to be at the core of whether the product or the service that you're bringing to market is going to be sustainable or not. Thank you so much to him, and as well, of course, to Didi Mohapi, who joined us earlier on in the show. Remember that if you want the Young Money crew to come to you, all you need to do is just follow me on Twitter. It's @TheRealNozi using the hashtag YoungMoney410. You can also tag @CNBC Africa. Let us know what you're up to, what your business is doing, how you're disrupting the space that you're in, and we'll make sure that we help you tell your story. Until next time, thank you for joining us. It's goodbye.